Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we are taking the magnifying glass to a piece of literature that is it's so detailed and massive that entire nations, entire mythologies fit inside.
Yeah, it's a huge world.
But we're going to focus on a segment that is so deceptively simple. It's really just a moment of rest that I think a lot of readers might just glide right past it. We are going to try and prove that sometimes, the most monumental truths are hidden in the preparation of a single meal.
That's so right. Our sources today have really zoomed in on this one chapter of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit, which details Frodo, Sam, and Gollum's brief passage through Ithilien.
Right.
And on the surface, it's just a narrative break, a chance for the characters to finally catch the breath. But beneath that pastoral calm, this chapter is a masterclass in tension and themes and character development. It really sets the stage for everything that follows.
I think the mission statement for this deep dive is really crucial. We need to understand how this seemingly domestic incident, this whole struggle over whether or not you should cook a rabbit, actually drives the entire epic struggle forward.
Exactly.
It cements these core themes like trust, survival, and the collision of, the intimate lives of hobbits with the huge fate of Middle-earth. It's not just a walk and a meal. It's a critical narrative fulcrum.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And to set the stage, we have to locate this action. Where are they? They have just staggered out of the dead marshes.
Which is just an environment of death, desolation, decay. The change must have been incredibly jarring.
Absolutely. So geographically, they've now entered Ithilien, which is a really key piece of context here.
Ithilien, for those of you visualizing the map, is that fertile region of Gondor, east of the Great Anduin River. It's basically a green buffer zone before you hit the complete oppression of Mordor.
And that phrase, green buffer zone, is everything. For Frodo, Sam, and Gollum, having just survived these swamps filled with the ghosts of ancient battles, Ithilien offers a momentary but really profound reprieve. The environment itself immediately becomes a character. It symbolizes this temporary hope, but also presents a physical challenge of a very different nature.
Okay, and here's where we can begin our first key section, the landscape of contrasts. Tolkien's descriptive powers are just on full display here. He doesn't just say, it's green.
No, not at all.
He gives us rolling hills, fragrant herbs, shaded streams. It's all this very sensory writing that's designed to soothe the reader and, more importantly, the weary travelers.
Yeah, the environmental detail it's not arbitrary. The research points out that Tolkien is using a very specific technique here to emphasize that stark transition.
A transition from what?
Well, think about the dead marshes. They were choked with foul vapors and this stench of decay, and then Ithilien greets them with the smell of thyme and mint and wood smoke. It's a very deliberate use of this fragrant, inviting language.
So it's more than just a place to walk through.
It's a psychological and spiritual restorative.
But if it's so beautiful, why is it fragile? Why isn't this simply a moment of peace for them?
Because that beauty itself serves a dual function, as our sources really analyze here. The landscape acts as both genuine beauty and necessary camouflage.
Ah, okay.
The very things that make it lovely, the dense thickets, the tall trees, the shaded streams, that's what provides the cover they need to hide from the roving patrols of Sauron's forces, who are constantly sweeping this contested territory.
So if they were out in a wasteland, they'd be seen immediately. The threat would be obvious, it'd be external. But here, in this rich, vibrant sanctuary, the threat is insidious. It lurks. And that juxtaposition creates this immediate kind of visceral narrative tension.
Exactly. This beauty reinforces a profound theme, that peace is fleeting. It's fragile in war-torn Middle-earth. It's a sanctuary only in the sense that it offers temporary concealment.
And the richness of the environment itself makes it a prize worth fighting for.
Which means conflict is inherently drawn to it. The sources really explore how these contrasting environments affect the characters' mental states. After the grim atmosphere of the dead marshes, the sights and smells of Ithilien offer this moment of fleeting hope.
But at the same time, it must increase their anxiety because they know this beauty can't last.
Precisely. And we see that psychological effect manifest almost immediately. For Frodo, this natural world has to feel like a cruel irony.
How so?
Well, he has this external physical break, but the internal battle, the ring's burden, that doesn't take a vacation. In fact, seeing the beauty of the world he's fighting to save probably just sharpens the pain of the sacrifice he's making.
The source material refers to this as hidden danger in a beautiful world. They just cannot drop their guard. This whole landscape functions as a device to remind us that evil is mobile. It contaminates and it shadows even the places that seem safest.
And it speaks to the fundamental nature of the war itself, doesn't it? It's not just some contest between light and shadow. It's a contest for the soul of the land. Ithilien is contested territory, a borderland. It's not just Mordor that's dangerous.
It's the transition zone. That's what's perpetually corrupted and uncertain.
And this ambiguity is so key. If the area were purely infested with orcs, the strategy would be simple. Run and hide.
Right.
But because Ithilien is Gondorian land that's currently under siege, the dangers include not just the enemy, but also the possibility of running into unexpected allies who might misunderstand their mission or, even worse, try to take the ring for their own purposes.
So the environment isn't just a physical hurdle, it's a test of vigilance. The natural world is their temporary ally, giving them cover.
But that cover is also what makes the approach of danger less visible. The deep thickets that conceal them from the sky also conceal orc scouting parties that might be hiding just 50 yards away. The analysis shows this keeps the narrative pacing incredibly taut, even during these moments of rest.
It's like Tolkien is using these environmental contrasts to mirror the characters' internal states.
Exactly. The hobbits are trying to hold on to their identity, their love of growing things, their appreciation for simple beauty, while they're just surrounded by this overwhelming malice.
So the vibrant life of Ithilien is a powerful reminder of what they're fighting for.
Even as it contains the very threats they're trying to avoid. The tension is palpable, and it's maintained purely by that contrast between the visual peace and the immediate strategic peril.
Okay, let's move from the macro landscape to the micro struggle, the logistics of survival. And this centers entirely on Gollum. This next section focuses on Gollum's dual role, and I think we really need to confront the sheer dependence Frodo and Sam have on him here.
It's huge.
Gollum is this vital but incredibly unstable tool that prevents them from immediately dying of exposure or starvation.
Our sources highlight that Gollum is absolutely critical for their immediate physical needs. Forget the guide aspect for just a moment. Here he is the native expert in wilderness survival. He provides knowledge of edible herbs and methods for catching food that are completely outside the experience of these Shire hobbits. This brings to the surface the practical, functional, sort of non-treacherous side of his deeply fractured personality.
But doesn't that reliance make Frodo's choice to trust him less of an act of mercy and more just an act of pragmatic necessity? I mean, they literally can't survive without him. Sam's a gardener, not a hunter-gatherer in a war zone.
That's a really probing question, and the sources suggest it's both. Initially, Frodo's decision to spare Gollum was purely ethical, following Gandalf's precedent about mercy.
Sure.
But here in Ithilien, that ethical decision transitions into a strategic necessity. He has to maintain this fragile illusion of trust to ensure Gollum continues to cooperate, or at least doesn't actively try to sabotage them. His utility is just undeniable. Without Gollum, they might simply starve on the wrong berries.
It's startling how essential that dark knowledge is. Gollum understands the terrain and the wildlife of this contested land in a way that the hobbits, who, prefer their food served in a cozy pantry, simply do not. This dichotomy, the civilized hobbits relying on this creature of raw nature, that's where the tension really lives.
And this duality is what defines the entire interaction over the meal.
Yep.
Tolkien expertly balances Gollum's treachery, which is always lurking beneath the surface, with these small moments of genuine utility.
And that reliance forces Frodo into this impossible balancing act.
Completely. He has to be merciful enough to secure cooperation, but wary enough to survive.
Which brings us to the core scene itself, the grounding power of food. Why dedicate so much narrative space to cooking a few rabbits? Given the timeline, it seems like an astonishing waste of time.
It is entirely necessary, as the analysis shows, because it grounds the story completely. This scene emphasizes the sheer resilience of ordinary life amidst this epic struggle. Tolkien focuses on the mundane act of preparing a meal to remind the reader that Frodo and Sam are fundamentally hobbits.
They still crave simple comforts.
Exactly. And their mission is driven by the desire to return to a world where those comforts are safe.
So the act of cooking the rabbit is deeply symbolic. It's the most hobbit thing they could possibly do. They are carrying the world's most powerful weapon to its destruction, but they refuse to sacrifice their culinary standards in the process.
Yeah.
They're not turning into warriors or monsters. They're clinging fiercely to their identity.
Precisely. The meal preparation represents the resilience of civilization. Survival, in Tolkien's view, requires more than just military courage. It demands food, shelter, rest. By focusing on the details of preparing herbs and rabbit, Tolkien validates the necessity of these simple comforts.
They're performing the rituals of home in a foreign, dangerous land.
And that maintenance of ritual is an act of defiance against Mordor, which represents the stripping away of all color, all comfort, all joy.
I think we need to spend a moment on the specific culinary details because our sources mention they're deeply symbolic. Sam's insistence on using the fragrant wild herbs of Ithilien thyme, sage, rosemary, it's not just about flavor, is it?
No, it is absolutely not. It is about actively creating a piece of the Shire, however small, right there in the shadow of war.
Sam refuses to accept the degradation of his standard of living. He insists on proper seasoning, proper cooking, a proper warm fire, all despite Gollum's preference for raw meat.
And this conflict isn't just about taste. It is the whole dynamic of trust and caution waged over a stew pot.
This is where that psychological battle truly flares up. Sam is the suspicious chef. He embodies caution. Gollum, meanwhile, is offering this dubious culinary advice: eat the rabbits raw or at best poorly prepared, which is a stark reminder of his devolved, corrupt state.
Sam is the voice of pragmatic reality.
Mm.
His skepticism isn't just a personality trait, it's a necessary protective mechanism. He is constantly questioning Gollum's every move. The analysis notes the subtle humor here. Sam is worried about this existential threat, but he's also just appalled by Gollum's low culinary standards. He's thinking, it's bad enough we might die, but we shouldn't have to eat bad food while doing it.
That distinction is crucial. If we look closely at Sam's internal monologue, which the source points to, he actually finds some wild time pun that Tolkien definitely intended, connecting the herb time with the concept of finding time for small comforts.
Yeah. Sam needs this moment of normalcy to stay sane.
Yeah.
But Frodo, conversely, is forced to operate on a higher, more dangerous ethical plane.
Frodo chooses to tolerate Gollum. He's illustrating that tension between mercy and practicality that runs through the whole book. He knows the strategic risk Sam is pointing out, but he believes his earlier act of mercy was somehow, providentially guided. He feels morally obligated to protect Gollum.
But wait, doesn't that need to be challenged? I mean, from a purely tactical perspective, isn't Frodo's continued trust in Gollum an act of strategic incompetence? Sam is proven right time and time again. He is literally cooking a meal while the object of his distrust is slipping away to catch more food, not for the pot, but for his own raw consumption.
That is precisely the tension Tolkien wants us to feel. Sam is tactically correct. Gollum is a liability who cannot be trusted with the ring or their lives. However, Frodo is operating under the heavy influence of the ring itself, which demands immense self-control and ethical clarity. The research suggests that Frodo's mercy is less about Gollum's redemption and more about preserving his own moral integrity against the ring's corruption.
So if Frodo gave in to Sam's distrust and, say, killed Gollum, he would be giving in to a darker impulse.
And that could potentially compromise his ability to resist the ring later on. His choice of mercy, though tactically dangerous, is spiritually and ethically necessary for the success of the mission.
That is the thematic balance we get from the source material. Sam's skepticism balances Frodo's idealism. You need Frodo's compassion to maintain the mission's moral high ground and to secure Gollum's necessary expertise.
But you need Sam's caution to make sure they aren't destroyed in the process. The stewed rabbit scene is the crucible where those two approaches clash over something as simple as fire and seasoning.
And the climax of this interaction is when Sam catches Gollum trying to hunt the rabbits. Not for the pot, which would be fine, but for his own preferred raw consumption.
Right.
This visual evidence of Gollum's fundamental nature just solidifies Sam's distrust. It demonstrates Gollum's inability to truly join the civilized efforts of the hobbits.
It highlights the vast gulf between them. The hobbits are fighting to preserve the Shire civilization, comfort, good food. Gollum exists completely outside those parameters. He's the embodiment of the ring's corrosive force, which strips away all those humanizing elements.
And the tension is almost unbearable, because the reader knows Sam is right, yet Frodo has to maintain this delicate facade of trust just to move forward.
And what we learn from analyzing the scene in this depth is that the act of eating the stewed rabbit isn't just a pause, it's an act of defiant normalcy. By choosing to eat a hot, well-seasoned meal, they are actively choosing to reaffirm their hobbit identities, their values, their purpose, right before they face their most dangerous encounter yet.
It is the ultimate act of resilience, performed just as they are most vulnerable. They've used Gollum's knowledge to get the food, but they use Sam's Shire standards to prepare it, which shows that their core values, the very thing Sauron wants to destroy, are still intact.
And now that brief, nourishing respite is shattered. The end of reprieve is sudden and it's brutal. The trio is captured by a Gondorian patrol. The analysis shows this narrative shift is incredibly important.
The shift is pivotal. It's so important because the danger is reintroduced, but not from the source they were expecting. It doesn't come from orcs or ring wraiths.
It comes from the forces supposedly fighting on their own side, the men of Gondor.
Exactly. And this elevates the conflict from just a physical survival story to one of strategic and political navigation.
This forces Frodo and Sam to deal with the messy reality of the war. They can't just sneak through contested land anymore. Now they have to interact with these larger geopolitical forces. The innocence of their stealth mission is just. It's compromised. And the stakes are suddenly raised far beyond just physical danger.
And this encounter introduces a radical uncertainty. The question is not just will they be betrayed, but how will they be treated by their potential allies? Will these soldiers understand the true nature of their quest? Will they try to confiscate the ring for Gondor's own defense?
It's a huge risk.
The source material emphasizes that this reveals the complexity of the war. Danger lurks not just in the shadow of Mordor, but in the gray areas of loyalty and jurisdiction, and the often misguided intentions of those who might want to use the ring's power for good.
And the abruptness of the capture, betrayed by the smoke and smell of Sam's comforting stew, no less, is just a stroke of narrative genius.
It is.
The very thing that anchored them to their identities, the scent of the cooked meal, is the thing that exposes them to this new political danger.
It's the ultimate irony. The comfort they sought to reinforce their spirit is what immediately invites this external scrutiny. And that scrutiny leads us directly to the next point. The critical familial connection. This is the element that makes this capture truly consequential. The captain of the patrol who captured them is not a random soldier.
He's Faramir.
He's Faramir.
Yes, and we have to explicitly name the stakes here. Faramir, the captain, is revealed to be the brother of Boromir, a member of the original Fellowship who fell under the influence of the ring at Amon Hen. This adds a critical, massive layer of personal and political risk to the situation.
So let's analyze the immediate consequences. Before this, Frodo and Sam were ghosts. Now, their identities, their link to the Fellowship, and the existence of the ring are no longer a secret confined to just the three travelers.
No.
This familial connection means the larger Gondorian war machine has, however subtly, registered their presence and the immense power they carry.
The strategic danger is enormous. I mean, if Faramir, the brother of Boromir, hears the name Frodo and connects it to his brother's mission and his tragic downfall, he is immediately placed in an ethically precarious situation. He knows his brother tried to seize the ring. The strategic weight of this reveal cannot be overstated.
Indeed. And the research insists that the danger here is twofold. First, the exposure itself compromises the stealth of the mission, but second, the temptation is immediately present. Faramir, as a loyal son of Gondor and brother to a ring-tempted man, has to immediately confront the impulse to take the weapon back to his father, Denethor, to save his city. This is the ultimate replication of Boromir's fatal error, but with even higher stakes, because Faramir's the one in control.
It transitions the narrative from a physical trial into a moral one. The entire sequence, from the smell of the stew to Faramir's recognition, is a perfect illustration of how Tolkien connects everything to the wider war. He uses this small personal connection, the loyalty Faramir holds for his brother, and his loyalty to Gondor, to emphasize this profound theme, that personal relationships and individual loyalties can be as crucial as large battles. They can directly influence the outcome of global events.
The epic battle for Middle-earth, therefore, doesn't just hinge on Aragorn's prowess or the armies of Rohan. It hinges on whether Faramir, based on his personal character and loyalty, can resist the power that broke his beloved brother. The personal becomes the strategic.
And if that captain had been any other soldier, someone less moral or less connected,
Frodo and Sam might have been executed as spies or had the ring immediately confiscated.
So the stewed rabbit led them to this immediate crisis, but the moral character and the family connection of Faramir is what offers them that slim chance of reprieve. It underscores the idea that virtue, or the lack of it in individual characters, is the true engine of this massive conflict.
And the capture also serves to recontextualize Gollum. He's captured too. And for a brief moment, the dynamic between the trio changes. Frodo, in particular, has to immediately decide whether to protect Gollum from the Gondorian soldiers, reinforcing his commitment to mercy, or to betray him to secure their own freedom.
Right.
And his decision to continue protecting Gollum, even under duress, further defines the moral weight of his character.
And that sets up the subsequent scenes in Henethynone perfectly. It forces Frodo to defend his decision to trust Gollum in front of a powerful military captain, which lays bare the entire strategy, both moral and practical, of their quest. The humble stewed rabbit led directly to an interrogation that determines the fate of the ring.
It's an incredible chain of events.
Let's now zoom out and just appreciate the genius of the author's craft in this segment. Section 4.1 focuses on layered narrative techniques. If this were a film, the pacing would be impossible to manage. You're shifting from pastoral piece to domestic comedy to high-stakes espionage in just a few minutes.
The sources really highlight how Tolkien blends these disparate elements so seamlessly, creating this constant, low-level hum of narrative anxiety mixed with grounding reality. There are 4 distinct layers operating at the same time.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, the mundane, everyday Hobbit concerns. Preparing food, ensuring proper seasoning, appreciating the local herbs.
That's the grounding layer. It prevents the characters from becoming just, plot devices.
No.
We see them as relatable individuals with simple, persistent needs.
Okay, second is the tense narrative stakes. The immediate fear of discovery, capture, and potential mission failure.
And the third layer.
The third layer is pure, rich world building. All the details about the flora, the customs of Islian, the military patrols of Gondor, the complex chain of command. This layer ensures the fictional world feels vast and real and strategically complicated.
And finally, the essential element of relief and relatability. That subtle humor and irony, mostly generated by Sam's profound grumpiness about Gollum's primitive methods and his refusal to abandon his Shire standards even when faced with imminent death.
This blend is critical because it avoids narrative fatigue. If the chapter were purely high-tension travel, the reader would just burn out. By contrasting the pastoral and the perilous, the mundane and the monumental, Tolkien generates a real emotional resonance. We care about the mission because we care about the small, simple comforts that the mission is intended to preserve.
Which brings us to our next section, the intimate and the epic. I still kind of struggle with how you can make a discussion of proper seasoning feel epic. I mean, what's the ultimate synthesis here?
The synthesis is that the persistence of ordinary life amidst the epic struggle is the core message of this deep dive. The fight to save Middle-earth is fundamentally the fight to preserve the ability to enjoy a simple, hot, well-seasoned meal. Sauron's evil is characterized by its desire to crush life and color and comfort. If Frodo and Sam stop caring about stew and bread and time, then the war is already lost on a spiritual level.
That reframes the stakes entirely. The internal struggle over the stew pot isn't a distraction from the epic war, it is a manifestation of it. Even in this moment of relative calm, Tolkien ensures the reader senses the overarching threat and the vital importance of every small decision made by the characters, particularly concerning their adherence to their Shire values.
The importance lies in the micro-level choice. Frodo choosing mercy over immediate safety, Sam choosing prudence over expediency. Those choices have massive macro-level consequences later on. If Frodo hadn't chosen mercy, Gollum wouldn't have been their guide to Shelob's lair.
And if Sam hadn't been so prudent, they might have been killed by Gollum much earlier.
Exactly. This scene defines the relationship dynamics that will literally determine success or failure at Mount Doom.
And this leads us to our final point here. Monumental consequences of the smallest details. Our entire deep dive really boils down to this fundamental thematic takeaway from the sources.
That's the final word on Tolkien's structural genius. In his world, the smallest, most seemingly trivial details, an herb, a captured rabbit, or the specific family connection of a Gondorian captain. They are not colorful asides. They are narrative levers that pivot the entire course of events.
The realization that the subtle scent of wild thyme is what betrayed them to Faramir, who is the brother of Boromir, who is tempted by the ring, it's this cascade of consequences that starts from the most intimate detail. Understanding that chain reaction is like a shortcut to being well informed about the complex strategic architecture of the story.
It connects everything back to the principle of providence that's often implied in the narrative. Nothing is accidental. As the hobbits inch closer to Mount Doom, the weight of each choice, no matter how small, whether to trust Gollum, whether to make a small cooking fire, whether to show compassion to an enemy, it begins to weigh more heavily than the physical burden of the ring itself. The success of the mission is built on these meticulous details.
It's the ultimate lesson in literary analysis, really. Never skip the parts about the food, because the food is almost always a symbol of the civilization they're fighting to preserve.
To summarize this deep dive into of herbs and stewed rabbit, we have extracted 4 crucial takeaways from the source material.
First, we analyzed Ithilien as a fragile sanctuary. It's a place where profound beauty provided both camouflage and narrative tension, reminding us of the temporary nature of peace. The psychological reprise it offered was immediately balanced by that constant, hidden danger.
Second, we dissected the stewed rabbit scene itself, confirming that food acts as a crucial grounding force, representing the resilience of ordinary life. This set the stage for the core psychological conflict between Frodo's necessary, idealistic mercy and Sam's essential, cautious suspicion.
Third, we noted how abruptly the narrative stakes were raised by their capture, shifting the threat from physical monsters to the political complexities of the Free Peoples, and most critically, the revelation that the Gondorian captain was Faramir, Boromir's brother, introduced this immense strategic dimension, proving how personal loyalties and character influence global outcomes.
This chapter is really a testament to Tolkien's craft. He masterfully blends the intimate struggle for physical and moral survival with the epic stakes of the World War. It instructs us that survival in a dangerous world requires the perfect, volatile balance of both, the courage to continue the great quest and the grounding necessity of simple human comforts.
So for you, the learner, that meticulous analysis of a simple narrative moment yields an understanding that the structure of the war is mirrored in the small domestic conflicts of the journey. The fate of the world hinges on whether a hobbit can find time and whether a man can resist temptation.
Which leaves us with our final provocative thought for you to consider, based on the monumental implications of these small choices. If the fate of Middle-earth hinges on personal loyalties, and the simple choice between raw necessity, which is Gollum's way, and cultivated comfort, Sam's way, what balance between caution and compassion is truly necessary for survival in a complex world?
When does a pragmatic choice compromise the moral integrity necessary to complete your own greatest mission?
A question that demands some serious reflection.
Perhaps over a thoroughly cooked, well-seasoned meal. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Me